All right, mini makers, let's get started. All right, in your box this month, you have Christmas ornaments. There are 6 of them. We have bagged them individually so that you know what pieces go with which ornament. And then that way you can work on one ornament at a time, okay? So in your kit, you'll have a bag of goodies. This is to decorate your ornaments. You have the hangers, and then you have some bells and some snowflakes and some wooden beads and little, what are those things? Like little pom-poms for the hats and wherever you want to use them. All right. You're also going to have each one of your ornaments in bags. So just take out those and set those aside. And remember, let's work one at a time. Now you'll have instructions. I don't have instructions in my box, but your box will have instructions. And you're also going to have some white wedges to paint with. Now remember, you can cut these in half to make smaller pieces. So you just want to take your scissors and you want to cut them in half, just like this. Now remember, you got scissors when you first joined Mini Maker. So use your scissors and cut them in half, just like that, to make smaller pieces. And then you'll have some smaller yellow sponges to paint with. You have some ribbons to decorate your ornaments with, and you'll just cut those to the lengths that you need them. You have a yellow tube of wood glue. It says wood glue on it, so you know it's not paint. And then you'll have a variety of paint colors. Your instructions will have a paint palette on it that shows you how to mix colors to get the color you want if you don't like the colors that we've given you. And you'll also have a paintbrush. Okay, now remember to open your box and spread your box out on your table to paint your ornaments on so you don't get any paint on your table. Or if you already have a table cover on your table, then that's fine as well. So let's just pick one ornament at a time and we're gonna paint that. This first one is our Joy snowman ornament. There's not a whole lot to this guy. This piece here is the brim of his hat, and of course the carrot is his nose. And the O is the snowman face, and then we got the J and the Y. Okay, so let's get started painting this guy. So you might want to have a paper plate handy this time around, or once again, you can use your pizza box. And on my paper plate, just going to squeeze out a couple of the colors of paint that I think I want to use this time. Now don't use too much paint. You don't need that much paint and you don't want to waste it. Okay, so you want to make sure you have enough paint to use all your ornaments. Now you might want to get a cup of water, have a cup of water handy so you can rinse your paintbrush off. All right, these are the colors that I'm going to use on this ornament. Okay, so you can see that I just have a tiny little bit of paint of each color. It's about the size of a dime. And if I need more, I will certainly add some more. All right, I'm going to take my half wedge that I cut here and I'm going to dip it in my black paint. I'm going to paint the brim of his hat. And then I'm also going to take and I'm going to paint just this top piece, because I know that's the top part of his hat. All right. I'm going to take another wedge, and this time it's a half wedge still. I'm going to paint my snowman face. Right, so there's my snowman face. Now I'll need another coat on that, but I gotta let it dry first. Remember, don't paint over it until it's all dry. Okay, I am going to paint my letters. I'm gonna use my brush for my letters. So once again, if you don't have a cup of water, make sure you have a cup of water. All right, so I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to paint my Y green. Okay, we're gonna let that dry. We're gonna rinse our brush out though. So rinse your brush and then dry it off on a napkin. And then we're going to grab our red paint and we're going to paint our J. Okay. We're gonna let our J and our Y dry, but once again, we're gonna rinse our brush off and dry it off, and we'll just set it aside for now. Now we're gonna go back to our hat and give our hat and our snowman face second coats. Okay. Second coat on that. And then we're gonna do our J and our Y, okay? Do your J and your Y, your second coat. Make sure the first coat's dry, mine is dry, but do it the same way you did before. All right, now we're gonna paint our nose. So we're gonna take our brush and we're gonna paint our carrot nose. And we're gonna let it dry and we're gonna give it another coat. Okay, here we go with our second coat. Okay, now we're gonna let those pieces dry. Okay, I want to add some extra to my letters. So I'm gonna take my clean paintbrush, I'm gonna take the wrong side, so the plasticky pointy side. And I'm just going to dip the end of it into my white paint. Okay, so I can grab just a little bit, you can see that, on the end of my paintbrush. And I'm going to make dots, just like that. Using my paintbrush, the wrong end. You can make 2 dots and then you have to re-dip your paintbrush. And I'm just gonna touch the paintbrush to the letter and put some dots on it. Just gonna add just a little something extra to my ornament. Now these dots will take extra long to dry, so be patient. Once you're done with it, just set it to the side and work on a new ornament, okay? While you wait for it to dry before you glue it. Now on my J, I'm gonna do stripes. So now I'm gonna take my paintbrush, the right end, and I'm gonna dip it into my white paint. And I'm gonna set it down on my ornament, straight down on my J, and I'm just gonna swipe across. So straight up and down, and I'm just gonna swipe across. I'm going on a diagonal. See that? Look how much that adds, the stripes and the dots, and it only just took us an extra second. Makes our J look like a candy cane. Okay, and then we're just gonna let that dry and then we'll glue it together. I'm gonna set the pieces on it and just set it aside. Going here, okay. All right, so we already have a lot of the paint colors on our tray that we're gonna use. And we might have to just get ourselves a little bit more paint out. I'm gonna slide all the pieces to the side, and I'm gonna paint the snowman first. So if you need a little bit more white on your paper plate or your box, whatever you're using, squeeze out a little bit more white. And I'm using that same wedge I used earlier. Now, same with this snowman. You're just gonna paint right across there white, because that part is gonna be his hat. And he has this little brim here that's gonna go over it, and it's gonna cover those two where your white meets your black. So it's okay if you get, if you're not really clean with your paint right there, with your line to separate it. All right, so when you go around this, you just want to come up to his arms, just like that, and go by, because the arms will be painted brown because they're supposed to be sticks. All right, there's your first coat, and you're gonna let that dry before you paint another coat. But we've got our black hat to do. So let's just take our black wedge that we were using and go ahead and paint that. Just like that. It'll need another coat. We'll get that in a minute. Let's do the brim of the hat. All right, there's that. All right, so let's see. We use our paintbrush and we'll paint our tree green. We've already got some green on our plate, so we're just gonna use that. And we're gonna paint our tree. All right, there's our tree. Needs another coat, but he'll have to wait. Now, while we got our green paint out, we've got this little holly, and we can paint this green as well. I need just a tiny bit more green on my plate, so I'm gonna squeeze out just a little. And our tree is pretty dry, so we're gonna go ahead and put another coat of green on our tree. You'll need a couple of coats, but we'll move on to a couple other things we got to get done. So we got to paint our reindeer, and we have to paint our snowman arms, and those are all shades of brown. But we want to put a couple different shades of brown in there because we want to be able to tell the difference between the arms and the head of the reindeer, the antlers. So I'm going to squeeze out about a quarter size spot of brown right there. And right next to it, I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of white. Okay, about a dime size of white. Let me show you. A little bit of white right there. All right, I'm going to take the wrong end of my paintbrush and I'm going to mix just a little bit of brown into my white. And you see how I'm just taking a little bit of brown and mixing it into my white. And I'm going to get that lighter shade of brown right there. And then I'm just going to slowly mix in a little bit more brown until I get it the color that I want it to be. I don't want it a super light brown, but I don't want it to dark brown either. Right about there. I like that. Okay. I'm going to clean off the end of my paintbrush. And then I'm going to use that light brown. And I'm going to paint my antlers of my reindeer. Just like that. I come right up to his head. And I'm also going to paint his ears, this light brown. Okay. And then right here, now this is like his snout area. Okay, this little oval. I'm going to paint this light brown as well. All right, and I'm going to go back to my antlers and my ears and give them a second coat. And then we can rinse our brush because we're done with that light color. All right, we haven't given our black and our white of our snowman a second coat yet, so let's do that right now. All right, so I'm just gonna come in, I'm gonna do the same thing as I did earlier and give my snowman his second coat of white. All right, and then I'm gonna give the hat in the brim that second coat as well. Let's give our carrot nose another coat. We'll rinse our brush off. Got these little holly berries. We're gonna paint these red. It looks just like this little piece here. Paint those red. Let them dry and give them a second coat. All right, second coat. And we're gonna set those aside to dry and clean your brush. Now we're gonna take, we still have some of this darker brown on our plate. We're gonna grab that darker brown with our brush and we're gonna paint our little reindeer and just go up and around. Be a little careful by his ears and his antlers. If you take your time and go slow, you'll be able to do that without getting paint where it doesn't belong. You have to be patient. Everything is learned, okay? All right, there's your first coat. Let him dry, just set him aside. But grab your snowman and we're gonna do our snowman arms. So same thing, you're gonna get close to the white and just come up to the edge, just like that. All right, there's your first coat of your arms. It looks pretty good, guys. All right, let's come over and do our second coat on our reindeer. All right, there's that. Now, I'm going to take his ears. You don't have to do this, okay? But I'm going to take his ears, and I'm going to brush the outside edge with this dark color paint. Just so I'm leaving just a little bit of the inside of the ear with that lighter color. You see that? Just like that. And I'm going to do it on this one as well. And that will only need that one coat, so you won't have to come back and do that again. There we go. You got to put a second coat on your snowman arms. So get the second coat, put on your snowman arms, and then you can rinse your brush. Okay, now you can rinse your brush. All right, so reindeers have a snout, which is this piece, but in their snout is their nose. So we're gonna take the wrong end of our paintbrush and we're gonna dip it into our brown paint, and we're just gonna come over and we're gonna put 2 little dots on our snout, just like that. And then we're gonna let all of this dry and we'll put it together. So just like your first ornament, you're gonna just set all these pieces to the side. Just keep it all close together. Okay, next we're going to paint this one. This is the tag with the little reindeer and the lights across his antlers. So right away we can paint the snout and the antlers because we already have this paint mixed on our paper plate and we probably have plenty left over. So let's paint the snout. All right, and then we'll go back and we'll put a second coat on real quick. Okay, and put those pieces to the side. And then you've got your reindeer face to paint. So let's clean our brush, dry our brush, and we're just gonna pick up that brown paint that's on our paper plate already, and we're going to paint our reindeer. All right, he's got to dry and we're gonna give him a second coat. So let him dry all the way. And while we wait for him to dry, let's paint our tag. So let's take a foam wedge and let's cut it in half. We don't need all of it, so we'll take your scissors and cut the foam tag in half like that. Okay, so now we gotta paint the back of our tag, and I want to paint it blue. So I'm gonna squeeze out a little bit of this blue onto my plate, but I don't think that I want it as dark. So I'm gonna use my white wedge, a half white wedge, and I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of white right into the middle of my blue, just like that. And then I'm gonna dip my wedge into it, and then I'm going to paint my tag. Now it's okay if you cover all of these marks here, okay? I just don't want to cover the ears of my reindeer because I want some of that wood to show through the open parts of my reindeer ears right here. So I don't want to paint blue behind those ears. So I'm just going to come around. See that? I made sure that I got my paint just over that scored line, but I didn't get it in the middle where the ears are gonna sit because I don't wanna cover that up. But this needs another coat, so let it dry and then get another coat put on it. And then you've got this little piece here, and that's just a decorative piece that goes at the top of the tag. You can paint that any color that you want, but I have black out on my sponge, so I'm just gonna paint that black. And real quick, I'm gonna put the final coat on my reindeer because he needs another coat. So I'm gonna use my paintbrush and I'm going to paint that final coat. And remember, at the very end, we're gonna put all the details in, okay? You guys are gonna learn how to do eyes and shading with all of your ornaments. And of course, it's all optional. You guys don't have to do this, but mini makers, I'm gonna tell you, if you take the time to do the extra steps, it really makes your project pop, okay? And your adults will wonder how you did such a great job. And it's because you learned all of the little tricks of doing the details, okay? But we'll do those all at the very end. So we're gonna get all of our ornaments painted, and then we're gonna start I'm gonna teach you how to do all the fancy stuff. All right, let's let that dry, and we'll come back to it and we'll get our lights painted. I'm gonna put another coat on my little tag topper right now, and then that's done. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. After all this is dry, we'll get our lights painted and we'll go from there. Okay, so we just have the lights left to do on this little reindeer. And I'm just going to keep it simple with my lights, and I'm going to paint them red and green. Just 2 colors on mine, but you can do whatever you want to do on your lights. If you want to do blue in there as well, you can. Maybe you want to take your white and lighten up your colors to make a pink or a light orange, whatever you want to do, totally up to you, okay? But for mine, I'm gonna do every other one. I'm gonna do red and green. So I'm just gonna use my brush, and I'm gonna paint, my red and green. Now I'm also gonna paint the light strand, so that's like the little string part green. So I'm gonna do that right now. Because the Christmas tree light strands are generally green, so they blend in with the green of the tree. And you can do them whatever color you want. All right, and then back to painting my lights. Let's do this one green, and then those 2 can be red. All right, so this is how it looks. And of course, make sure you get your second coat on there. And then I'm gonna rinse my brush, and I'm gonna paint those last 3 lights red. Rinse your brush, dry your brush, and then red. Okay, so there's my red and green lights. right, we're gonna let that dry. And if our red needs another coat, we'll put another coat on it. So that's it for this tag, with the exception of the details, which we'll all do at the end. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put all these pieces together so they don't get lost. We can take our snout and our brown paint, and just like we did with our first reindeer, we can give our snout some little snout holes, little nose holes. There's one. And then we'll do the same thing, the other one. And then we'll just let that dry. Okay, I'm gonna move that over to the side with the other friends that are over there drying. And let's see, let's work on our Santas. How about we work on our Santas? And let's work on both of these at the same time because they'll have a lot of the same coloring. So let's pull all that out of the bags. All right. So we've got a lot of white and red, So let's squeeze out some white and some red paint onto our tray. So let's paint our holly real quick. It's the only thing that will have green. So we'll just paint that. And then we'll let that dry for a second and we'll get another coat on it. All right, let's put our second coat on. All right, we'll set that to the side and let that dry. And we'll clean our brush off. And we've got a lot that's white. So let's pull off what's white. Let's have a look here. So we know like the little bubble on his hat and the brim of his hat will be white. His mustache and his beard will be white. Okay. Same over here. So that's his nose, and this is this guy's nose. We'll set those aside. His mustache and his beard and the little bubble on his hat, and probably the, will we do that white or we do that red? Okay, so this will be white as well. So let's pull those four pieces off. So all of this is white. Now, the top of this piece here and the handle, I'm gonna do red. And the hat of this Santa, I'm going to do red. So let's do the red right now. And I'm just going to use one of my little half wedges. Now I don't have to paint this whole thing red because some of it's his face. So we're just gonna get the top part. We're gonna do that top part red, and we're gonna paint the hook part where the ornament hanger goes. And then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna get this handle too. That's all we need to paint on this cup red. Now we do have to paint right through here. I'm gonna paint it pink. So I'm gonna have to make pink, but that's his face, okay? So that's what's gonna show through. So we'll let that red dry real quick. We're gonna paint this other part of the other ornament red. This is the Santa hat. And we're gonna let that dry. And then we've got these little holly berries that go on that little green holly that you painted. So we want to paint those. All right. Let's see, this is dry, so we can go ahead and put our second coat on. Right now, you notice I didn't paint very far down, so the brim is going to come right here. So that's that hidden, that covered line area right there where you don't have to worry about, you know, whether or not your face paint matches your hat paint there. So don't paint all the way down. Okay, put a second coat on your other Santa hat. And then just set that aside to dry. All right, let's put a squeeze of orange on our plate. We don't need very much, just a tiny little pea size, okay? Just a little bit. And then let's put a little bit of white next to it. And we might need just a little tiny bit of pink or a little tiny bit of red. But let's mix a little bit of this orange. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of orange with my brush and I'm gonna mix it into that little blob of white. And I kind of want a peachy color because this is what I want to paint his face and his nose. Okay, so there's a nice little peachy color, but it's a little too orange for me. I want it to be a little redder. So I'm gonna grab just a tiny little bit of red, just a little speck, tiny little bit. And I'm gonna mix that in there. Learning to mix paint colors is really important because if you just have a few main colors, like your primary colors, which are red, yellow, blue, and then you have your white and your black, you can make any color you want. And it's just learning a few steps to mix those colors. So look at that. Now I've got a perfect skin color. I'm gonna paint each of my noses with that skin color. That's these two ovals, okay? And then we want to paint, oops. Now we want to take this guy and we want to paint across this section here because that's going to show through. So we want to go from one side to the other. About like that. Yep, and I covered up my eyes there, but don't worry, you'll be able to see where the eyes go. All right, now the same on this guy. This one over here, you can kind of see if you were to put his pieces back on. You just need that little strip right there, okay? So we're gonna take our pieces back off and we're just gonna paint that strip. Remember, you can do your ornaments however you want to do them. You want to get really technical and mix your colors and do all the shading and the little details that I'm going to show you at the very end, you can do that. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's totally up to you. Okay, so that's it for the little flesh color. I think his noses might need a second coat. So let's get those. All right. Okay. And then let's do another coat of red. That other coat. And then let's do the hanger hook on this. Okay, because that's got to be painted a color. Okay, now we have a whole lot of white to paint, right? All these pieces that we took off earlier need to be painted white. So we're gonna move that out of our way, and all of this gets painted white. So I'm gonna fast forward through the video as I paint all of this, because you got this, right? You're gonna take your white wedge and you're gonna paint all of these pieces. Right, just like that. Give them all 2 coats, and then come back to the video when you got all these done. So just pause the video until you're ready, or stop the video until you're ready. And we'll come back when all these pieces that are white have 2 coats. Okay, so all of our white pieces have 2 coats and are dry. So we're just going to set those pieces back on our Santas where they go. And we will do all the detail work to him or to them when the rest of our pieces or the rest of our ornaments are done. We actually only have 1 ornament left to do, so we're pretty close. Let's see, so this goes here and this goes here and this goes over that and this goes on top, and then you got your nose. And you got your little nose over here. All right, holly there. All right, so those are those 2 almost done. We're gonna set them with the other ones, and we're gonna work on our last ornament. So our last ornament is this little round snowman that says snow. So we'll set these aside. All right, I'm gonna paint the back of this with that blue again. So I gotta put some more blue on my plate. And I'm going to put a little white next to it. And let's go ahead and going to take a half wedge. If you need to cut one in half, cut it in half. And I'm gonna dip first into a little bit of white paint and then into the blue paint. And I'm gonna paint this backer board here. I want it to be a really light blue. So you don't need very much blue, you need more white. You need more white than anything. Really pale blue. And you can see I didn't pre-mix that color with my paintbrush or anything. I just put my wedge in it. If you want to pre-mix it, you can, but you get a nice effect by just taking your sponge and rubbing your sponge back and forth like I'm doing, and you can get a nice color. But you guys do what you want to do. If it's easier for you to mix it, by all means, go ahead and mix it. You see I get a nice, light, very light blue by just running my sponge across it. And then I get a little bit of a variegated color as well because I didn't mix that color solid first. I'm relying on the motion of my swiping my sponge to get a mix there, so that gives me a little bit of, still a little bit of the darker blue in there and some of the white. All right, now that will not need a second coat because of the way that I painted it. Okay, so I'm just gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna put a little bit more white on my plate in the same spot as before. And a little black. Okay. So I'm going to take, and I've got this little snowflake that was part of, it makes up the O in my word. And I'm gonna paint that white with my sponge. That's gonna need a couple of coats, but I'll get that first coat on there. I've got a little bit of holly and the little berries, so I'm gonna paint the berries red. Everything is gonna need 2 coats, so I'm just gonna get a coat on everything first. You know what, let's paint our S, N, and W white as well. So, remember, these will need 2 coats, but we'll get the first coat on. All right, there's those. Now we need to paint his carrot nose. I'm going to use my paintbrush for that. And his carrot nose will need probably 2 or 3 coats, so we'll let that dry. We've got our snowman here. We have to paint his body white, so let's go ahead and paint that. All right, so once again, you can see that's the line where the hat meets. And my line's not very clean there, but it really doesn't have to be, because my brim of my hat will come over top of it, just like on the other ornaments that we did. All right, I'm gonna take a half wedge, I'm gonna dip it in the black, I'm gonna paint his hat. And then I'm also going to paint that brim. Okay. And then we've just got the holly left. So let's get our brush cleaned out and we'll paint that little holly, the holly leaves. We'll paint them green. They'll need another coat, so we'll let that dry. Let's get a second coat put on our nose real quick, because that nose is probably gonna need a third, so we wanna get that dry. Orange cover's pretty rough. Takes a lot of coats sometimes. You can make your orange cover better by painting a white foundation first, if you can remember that for future. It might not need a second or a third coat, we'll see. Let's paint our berries with another coat, and that should be all they need. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do the white of our snowflake and our letters again with the second coat. Okay, where's this? Okay, and then all we have left is our snowman face and our snowman hat. So here we go with a second coat on our snowman face. And then let's get our second coat on our hat pieces. Just like that. And his hat brim. And then we got to get our holly with one more coat as well. And then we are done. Okay, so one more coat on our holly and that's it. never be able to do all the fine details, or you can just glue it together and call it done. Your choice. All right. Okay. I'm going to set my plate aside. I'm not going to get rid of that paint because I'm still going to use that to do some detail work. I want all this stuff to dry first, okay? So let's let this dry and we'll be back in just a minute to start the fine detail work and assembly of our ornaments. Okay, mini makers, we are back. All of our ornament pieces are painted and dried, and we are ready to begin assembly and detail work. Now, if you do not want to do any more painting or detail work to your ornaments, feel free to just fast forward to where I start gluing the ornaments together, okay? But if you want to learn how to do a lot of this fancy stuff that the adults do, now is the time to learn it. I'm going to take the time to teach you. Okay, I have a half white wedge. It's the same wedge I use for my white paint. I don't want a lot of paint. I want just a teeny tiny bit. So I'm taking my sponge and I am taking off most of that paint. I am wiping or dabbing or pouncing it onto the table cover to get most of the paint out of that sponge. I don't want very much paint. Okay, so you can use your pizza box or paper plate or whatever, or you can just start with a new sponge if you have a sponge left over. You want a tiny little bit of paint on this, barely any paint at all. You can see it's just a little tiny bit of paint coming off. So I'm going to take the brim of my hat, of my snowman hat. This is on my first ornament, or my last ornament I did, the one with the round one, okay? I'm going to take the brim of my hat, and I'm going to take that sponge that just has a little bit of white paint in it, and I'm just going to swipe it across just the edge, okay? You see how I did that? Just the edge. And I'm also going to take the snowman hat himself, and you see how I'm grabbing just the edge and I'm pulling down. And see how it just leaves that little tiny bit of white? Just grab the edge and pull down. And it adds just a tiny little bit to make that really stand out, okay? I kind of want to do a little bit of the same thing on the snowflake, but with blue. So I have a blue wedge, and it just has a tiny little bit of paint left in it. There's barely any at all. I can't really pounce any off. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab the edge of the snowflake, grabbing the edge and just pulling down till I get a little tiny tinge of blue on those edges, just like that. Okay. And now for this guy, I'm going to take my wrong end of my paintbrush, and I'm going to make sure I have enough black on my plate. So let me get just a little bit more black, and I'm going to put a little bit more white. Okay. And my snowman needs some eyes. I'm going to take the wrong end of that paintbrush, dip it into the black paint, and I'm going to give my snowman 2 dots for eyes, just like that. And then I'm going to wipe that paintbrush off with the baby wipe. I'm going to dip it into the white. And I'm going to put some little dots, a series of 3, just like that on his hat. And I'm going to do it in 2 spots. I only dip my brush 1 time because I want my dots to get smaller. So there's 1. There's the second one. It's a little smaller. And then the third one is smaller yet. How cute is that, huh? We're going to do that again on the brim of his hat. 1, 2, 3. And that's it. Now this guy has his little holly pieces and the little berry piece in the nose. But we can't put all this together until all of those dots are dry. So we are gonna just wait. I'm gonna put little dots on the holly as well. So I gotta make sure I don't have very much paint on that tip of my paintbrush, because this is really small. We don't have a lot of space to work with it. So we wanna make sure that we just have just a little bit of paint. I'm just gonna do it on each branch, on each leaf, just like that. All right, let's let that dry, and we'll come back and glue that guy together. All right, so let's move on to another Santa. Let's do, all right, we got a little tiny black and a little tiny red on our plate. So let's grab the tiniest amount of black with the wrong end of our paintbrush. And let's come over to the red that's on our plate. And let's just mix that black in there, just in a little corner, okay? We don't wanna, we just need a little bit of red and a tiny, tiny bit of black. We're just trying to darken that red up just a tinge. Okay, so can you see how that red is just slightly darker right here than it is right there, right? We're gonna take that red and we're gonna take a red sponge that we've had already been using. Unless you don't have one, then you can just cut the top off or something. You just need a tiny little piece. And we're gonna dip it into that darker red, and then we're gonna kind of brush it off because we only want a tiny little bit of it. And then we're gonna take our Santa hat. This is the top piece of this Santa. And we're just gonna grab the edge and we're gonna just grab it and push off. And all we're doing is we're adding just a tiny little bit of that darker red. I'm gonna darken my red up just a little bit more. Okay, so we're grabbing just a tiny little bit. And we're coming around the Santa hat. And we're just adding a little bit of shadow to it. That's all we're adding. See that? Just adds a little bit of a shadow. And we're gonna do that to this one while we're at it. So let's take our pieces off. We've got this. We're gonna grab that little bit darker red and we're just gonna come up and swipe the edges. We're gonna do the edges of the mug handle too. Just like that. It's a subtle, subtle difference, but it makes a lot of difference, guys. It makes a lot of difference. So if you have the patience and you want to learn to do this, this is how you do it. Okay? All right, so those are the two red pieces. Now we're gonna do something very similar to the white pieces, okay? Something really similar to the white pieces. So we're gonna take the mustache, and I have my black wedge, and I have no paint left in it, like the littlest bit. You can see I've pounced it all off on my table cover. And I'm just gonna grab the edges again, and I'm gonna just put a little tiny shadow of paint on all of those edges. See that? It's just the tiniest little bit. And I'm gonna do it to the whole thing. I got the big beard piece here. Doing the same thing to the big beard piece. Just takes a second to do this. Just like that. This little half bubble goes on the hat. Same thing, the outside edges of that. And then we've got the brim of his hat, and we're gonna do the same thing. So you can do a swipe like this too, just like a quick swipe. Okay, and And we're gonna do all the same thing. We're gonna repeat it on this Santa over here. Quick swipe, a little brush, do the outside edges of the pom-pom on his hat. We'll do his mustache. And then we'll do his little beard too. See, just a little bit of paint. If you get too much and you have a baby wipe handy, you can wipe it off with a baby wipe real quick. All right. Now let's do their noses just a little bit. If you have your red sponge, you can just grab that and do the edge of that. And then you can wipe it with your finger to kind of blend it in. See that? And the same with this little guy's nose over here. I'm gonna just swipe and blend it in. Just gives him a little touch of pink. A little touch of pink to his nose. Okay. All right, now let's take the wrong end of our paintbrush and let's give our Santas some eyes. So we're gonna lay our pieces in there where they go. We wanna know where to put eyes on this Santa because I didn't put them on and show you where. Okay, wrong end of the paintbrush dipped into the black paint. We're gonna give the Santa an eye here and an eye here. There's his eyes. And then this Santa shows you where to put the eyes. So all you have to do is dip your paintbrush into that black paint and then dot the middle of those eyes. Okay, so there's those two. Now we're gonna add a little bit of the white dots to the Santas. So let's dip our wrong end of our paintbrush into the white and let's put some dots on the handle right here. And we'll put some white dots on our holly. Now remember, the holly is really little, so you don't need a lot of paint on your brush. I'm gonna get that in the frame so you can see it. All right, so let's do this one over here. Dot, dot, dot. There's 3 little dots of white paint. And then we got the little berries, those teeny tiny little berries. And I'm gonna put a white dot at the edge of each one of these to show where the center or the opening of the berry is, just like that. All right, we're gonna let this all dry. We're gonna make sure that you don't get your, don't mess up your eye dots and your white dots that are still drying, okay? All right, we're gonna do this guy's hat. We're gonna do a dot, dot, dot. So he's got like 3 little dots there. And we're gonna come in and we're gonna do it on this side as well. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, so he's got 3 little dots. And that's all the fancy he gets. All right, so we're gonna set these guys aside to dry, making sure we don't disrupt his eyes. We don't wanna smear that paint that we're waiting to dry. All right, we're gonna bring our reindeer tag in front of us. And on this guy, we just gotta give him some eyes. Okay, we're gonna dip our paintbrush into the black paint and we're gonna just color in those little centers. I just touch my paintbrush to the middle of that eye and then I circle out until I fill it in. And then we'll let that dry all the way. But now let's give him, he's got like a little straight line right there where his mouth goes. So I'm gonna take our lighter colored brown that we had mixed up. If you don't have any left, you can mix some new brown up. And I'm just with the wrong side of my paintbrush. I'm drawing that in. Okay, so there's that. Now I also want to take, and I want to give him like little freckles maybe. So I'm taking the white and I'm going to give him 3 little dots of freckles, just like that. Wrong end of my paintbrush, dipped into the white paint, and he gets 3 little freckle dots. And this guy is done. We just have to wait for him to dry so we can glue him up. So we're gonna set him to the side. And then we're gonna bring this one back in front of us. And we're gonna take our white sponge. And we probably don't need any more paint in it, so we'll test it out first. We're gonna take that hat brim and we're just gonna swipe along the edge. Plenty of paint in there. We're gonna do the same thing to the hat on the snowman, just like that. And we're gonna do the same thing to the tree, except this time I'm not gonna go around it with a swipe. I'm gonna grab that edge and just pull my sponge down, right? So this is kind of like the snow on the trees, just like that. All right, so let's take the end of our paintbrush, the wrong end, dip it into the white. We're gonna put some dots on our snowman hat, and then we'll do them on the brim as well. Over here, 1, 2, 3. Let's do it on the little holly leaves. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it on our tree. We love these little dots. This adds a little something. Let's put 1 dot in each of our little berries. Okay. And then we've got our little reindeer. We want to give him some eyes, so we're going to wipe the end of our paintbrush off. We're going to dip back into our black, and we're going to give him some eyes. There's an eyeball, there's an eyeball. All right, so he's got some eyes, and then we'll wipe off our paintbrush, and we'll grab that white again, and we'll give him those little freckles. 1, 2, 3. On the other side, 1, 2, 3. So he's got his little freckles. All right. We'll set all these pieces aside to let them dry. And then we're moving on to our little Joy. And with our Joy, our snowman, he needs the brim kind of shadowed with that white paint around the outside edge. Just like that. And the top of his hat, we'll do that as well. Okay, there's that. And let's see, he needs some eyes and a mouth. So let's see where we would put the nose at. And the brim of the hat would go right here. So we're going to dot him an eye right here. Dot him an eye right there. And then let's give him some little dots down here for a mouth. I think that looks pretty good. All right. That's it. There's your details. Now we have to glue everything together. All All right, so we make sure all your dots are dry, and we're just gonna start gluing all of our stuff together. Let's put a little bit of wood glue on our paper plate. Okay. And you got a Q-tip in your kit as well. If you happen to not get one at any time, just grab a Q-tip or a swab from the bathroom. Ask mom or dad to help. And you can use the Q-tip to help you apply the glue, okay? So let's start with one of our first ornaments that is dry. And let's start putting it together. Remember to dry fit everything first. That means get everything where it goes on the ornament or whatever you're working on. Okay, make sure everything is where it goes. And then you'll start gluing your pieces down. Okay, that's where everything goes on this guy. I'm gonna pick up my S, and I'm just gonna put a little dot of glue around it with my swab. And then I'm gonna put my S back down. I'm gonna pick my N up, and I'm gonna do the same thing. All right, there's my word snow. I'm gonna glue my nose on. And then I'm gonna glue my hat brim on. And the little berries. Or the holly. And then the berries. And then I'm gonna wait for that to dry before I glue the snowman down. So we'll just put him to the side and we'll bring another one in front of us. Let's do this guy here. Okay, so first we're gonna take this round thing and we're going to glue that over the hole, just like that. We'll take the reindeer and we will glue him down where he goes. Now there is that outline etched line on that to show you where to put the reindeer, so you'll get him right where he goes. And then his snout. And then each of his little antlers. And then we've got the lights. Okay, so we'll just put a little dab of glue on. I'm just gonna put my glue on the lights. The back of the light. And then I'm gonna put them in place, and then I'm gonna set this guy aside to let him dry. Let's pull this in front of us. And we'll put some glue on this hat brim. Glue that into place. And then his nose. This one doesn't have much to glue. Just like that. Okay, we'll set him aside. Let's pull this guy. When we put this guy in, we're gonna use our fingers to line up all those edges there, okay? Line those all up. Your glue doesn't dry immediately, so you have a little bit of time to get everything where it's supposed to go. Get all those pushed into place. And then we'll put a little dab of glue on his nose. And we'll set the nose in there. All right, so he's all glued. We're just gonna let him sit until he's dry. And then we got this guy over here. We're gonna put some glue on the back of his brim. And then we'll do the beard next. We're just going to make sure that it all lines up. Some glue on the back of the pom-pom for his hat. And that just kind of sits down right in there. And we're gonna glue his mustache on next. I need more glue. Line that up over top, right where the follows that top edge there. And then we're going to take his nose and we're going to lay that right on top. Line it up. And then we'll take the holly and we'll just put that right here. And then we'll take the little holly berries. And then we'll carefully place that right there. And then we'll move him to the side and let him dry. And then we got our last one. Right, so this guy. All right, let's take and glue his hat on. Well, he might need some eyeballs too. We didn't give him any eyeballs. We'll glue his pieces on, and then we'll decide where he should have some eyeballs. We'll put his nose on. We'll glue the tree on. We're gonna line the bottom of the tree up with the bottom of the snowman, okay? And then we're gonna get some glue on the back of the reindeer head. And we're gonna line him up with the bottom of the snowman as well. And then we'll put some glue on the snout and stick the snout in there. And then we just got to glue the holly and the berries and give this guy some eyes, because I forgot that part. All right, so we'll put this right there on the hat, and then we'll take the berries and we'll put the berries on top, and they'll overlap that brim just a little bit like that. Okay, let's use the wrong end of our paintbrush dipped into our black paint, and we'll give him a little eye dot there and a little eye dot there. All right, now we got to come back to our round one, and we need to glue this snowman down because I glued him in the wrong order, so I couldn't pick him up. All right, and we're gonna put some glue on the back of him, and then we'll glue him to the ornament. All right, you guys, now you are ready for the hangers and all the decorations. All right, so let everything dry all the way, okay? And then we're gonna start hanging the decorations and the hangers and decorating them all up. Okay, mini makers, we are ready to do all of the final details, basically hanging the strings from your ornaments and putting on anything extra that you want. So you have pre-cut strands to hang your ornaments, and there will be one extra long piece, okay? One extra long piece. That is for this one here, because this is so big that you need an extra long. So you're just gonna take and put the end of the jute through a hole, and then just tie a double knot. It's just like tying your shoes. You tie once and then tie it again. And if you need help, reach out to an adult can help you with this part. Okay, and then the other side, the same thing. Just put the end through. You can pull it till you get this as long as you want it. You don't want that really, really long. Okay, and then just tie it into a knot around the top of the Y there. And then you'll just trim off any excess that you have. Okay, so you've got some jingle bells and you got some other stuff there that you can use. You can take some of your jute and you can put it through the top of your jingle bell like that. And then you can tie that on. You can put the bell on whatever ornament you want, or you don't have to. Okay, so I tied that, and then I'm just going to trim the ends off. And then move that bell just right down. And so there's your first ornament all done. All right. Let's do this guy next. Now on this one, we're gonna take one of our strands and we're gonna fold it in half. And we're gonna bring those two ends together, and then we're just gonna tie an overhand knot. And all you do is you make a circle. So you just make a circle and pull the two ends through and then tighten it down so it's real close to the ends, okay? And then you're gonna take the loopy part, push it through the ornament hole, and then you've got this loop here, open it up and grab the ends and pull it through. That is called a lark's head knot or cow hitching, okay? Very useful. All right, so let's take and let's put some ribbon on this one. I'm gonna take a piece of ribbon and I'm just gonna cut it off. I'm gonna do my red ribbon. I just got a little bit there. And I'm just gonna tie on one single knot. Tighten it down. Just like that. And then I'll trim the ends with my scissors. And this one's got a pretty little ribbon on the top. And we'll set that one aside. And then let's see, do this guy next. Same thing, I'm gonna fold this. I wanna put a bell on this one though. So I don't wanna tie this one quite yet. I'm gonna just fold it in half. I'm gonna push the end through the hole. I'm gonna open that ring up there, that hole, that loop. I'm gonna pull the ends through just like I did before, but I just didn't tie it yet because I'm gonna take, let's take the green ribbon. I'm gonna take 2 pieces of green. And I'm gonna wrap them around and tie a knot just like that. Tighten it down. And then I'm gonna trim my ends. I like to trim on a diagonal. Separate those. And then I'm gonna take a bead. And I'm gonna put my ends through the bead. Just like that. I'm gonna tie a knot real close to the top of that bead so that stays down. And then I will tie the knot at the end of my string. So then there's this ornament. Okay. And let's see, now we've got this guy here. So once again, I'm just gonna fold my string in half. I'm not gonna tie the knot yet. I'm gonna take the end that's folded and push it through the hole. I'm gonna open that loop up and I'm gonna grab both of those ends and pull it through to cow hitch it. Tighten that down. We'll tie a black ribbon on this one. Tie it tight, push it down, and then trim your ends. And then I'm going to take the bell and I'm going to feed the jute through the top of that bell there and push that down. I'm going to tie a knot real close to the bell so the bell can't slip up high. And then I'm going to tie a knot at the very end for the hanger. And then there's our Santa cup ornament. Okay, now we got a reindeer, and take another piece of our jute, fold it in half, push it through the hole, and open the loop, pull the strands through. Okay, and on this one, you've got these snowflakes as well. You would have to glue those on. Let's glue one of those on. I still got some glue on my plate. Maybe use a couple of them. Okay, so on this one, let's put a bead, and we'll do a ribbon. Let's do, how about red ribbon on this? I got a little bit of red ribbon left. Tie a red ribbon around. And I'll trim the ends on an angle. And then let's, oh, I don't know. Let's put a bell on it instead. I got this green bell here. That will look good. Push all that down, and we'll tie a knot at the end. Tie a knot at the end of the cord for the hanger. And then there's this guy. And then we got our last one. Take our cord, fold it in half, put it through the hole. Oh, this hole's a little smaller. Open that loop up, grab the strands and pull them through. Tighten that down. And then let's see. Well, let's put our last little jingle bell on and some, how about some of this green ribbon? Trim off our green ribbon. Like that. And then we'll put this bell on. We're going to tie a knot really close to the jingle bell, as far down as we can get it. And then we'll tie a knot at the very end. All right, and there's your last ornament. And you got some stuff left over if you wanted to use it for something. Or you could just put it in your craft box and use it down the road. All right, I hope you guys loved this one. I know this one was extra long, but you learned a lot of new things. You learned about shading and doing the extra dots to make everything stand out and be a step above. And remember, if you didn't want to do that, you don't have to. You can just skip that part, okay? All right, well, we hope you enjoyed this, Mini Makers, and we'll see you again in a couple of months.